My name is Jeff Brady. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Soil and Crop Sciences at Texas A&M University. I've been working on biochar for about the last 4 years. We received a grant to do biochar work about 4 years ago, so been working on it for a while. You can add biochar to soil by just adding it to the surface, top dressing onto the surface of the soil, or you can plow it in, you can till it in. We have found that the biochar, particularly the dairy manure biochar that we add to the top of the soil, ends up blowing away. The first high wind that comes along, the particles are so fine that the wind will just blow it away, and it's hard to study if the thing you apply blows off of your research plot. So that hasn't worked out for us. So the plots that we're really studying now have biochar incorporated by tilling it into the top few inches of soil. So our goal in applying biochar, we have several goals, and one is to sequester carbon in the soil. And by plowing it in there or tilling biochar into the soil, it will remain in place for centuries, even as long as millennia. And so if you incorporate biochar into the soil, it's going to be there. And we're actually having to take good notes on where we're placing it, because we have research plots that rotate every year. And if we have biochar in certain areas, that is a treatment that's going to remain for potentially thousands of years, and that will impact future studies. So we're really having to keep track of where we put it. The goal is to sequester carbon long term, and that is one of the main advantages of creating biochar out of organic materials. It's a way to sequester carbon long term and pull it out of the carbon cycle where it's cycling up into the atmosphere. Impacts on soil nutrient quality would depend on what type of biochar that you're applying. Biochar created from wood is high in carbon but low in nutrients, and biochar created from dairy manure is high in nutrients and lower in carbon. If you apply wood biochar to agronomic fields, you can actually pull nutrients away from the plants. The biochar can absorb nitrogen and phosphorus that would encourage plant growth, and the plants may be stunted. So do-it-yourselfers who are applying biochar as an agronomic practice often ferment it with some organic materials to charge it with nutrients. And in doing so, they actually add nutrients into the system. Now, dairy manure biochar is high in nutrients because the cows are fed large amounts of nitrogen and phosphorus. That ends up in the manure, and it is a good fertilizer. So biochar created from dairy manure is a good fertilizer, but it's lower in carbon. And so one of the things we're doing is blending wood biochar with manure biochar, so we're getting the benefits of really increasing soil carbon, but also pulling in all the nutrients from the dairy manure so that plants will be encouraged to grow. Biochar, again, it's going to depend on the type of biochar as to how it impacts the nutrients in soil. If it comes from a nutrient-rich source such as dairy manure, it's going to increase the nutrient content of the soil. If it comes from wood, it's actually going to pull some of the existing nutrients into the soil and absorb those nutrients onto the biochar and hold them. The good thing about dairy manure biochar is that it holds the important nutrients such as nitrogen and phosphorus and releases them slowly, so it acts as a slow-release fertilizer. So biochar incorporated in the soil can hold those nutrients longer term so that microbes and plants can absorb them before they end up in the environment. So nitrogen and phosphorus are expensive for producers to apply, and they don't want to apply them and then have them enter waterways or volatilize and go up into the atmosphere. We want them to go into the plants. If the biochar can hold the nutrients, particularly nitrogen and phosphorus, long term, gives plants a longer time to absorb them and microbes a longer time to absorb those nutrients. So there's this, push to decrease carbon intensity in agricultural production, and biochar can be a very important part of that. And so the organic materials we produce from agricultural production, in this case we're talking about dairies and the manure that dairy cows produce, we want to hold that and keep it out of the carbon cycle as long as possible. And converting that manure carbon into a biochar and then incorporating the soil can hold it in the soil for thousands of years rather than, a time frame of a year to 3 years if you compost it and it's degraded by microbes. So I think that the future of biochar is as a soil amendment for soil nutrition for crops and as a means of holding carbon, high quality carbon, long term in the soil.